Hello, 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 and welcome to yet another edition of When Freedom Speaks. And this is AME Zion and the Star of Zion exclusive programming that we are bringing to you on tonight. We are at the end of Black History Month. We are one day away. February 27th is today, and we got one more day tomorrow. And we want to bring you a little more taste of exactly what we've been talking about all month long, celebrating our Black heroes and sheroes, and being able to just bring you an exclusive look into what we stand for as African Americans. And on tonight, we're going to bring you a special story. It's going to be told by Sister Tami Tyree, and I'm not going to do too much introducing her because she is going to be introduced by her good friend and the editor of the Zion Spotlight category for the Star of Zion, Miss Deborah Polk. And we are going to bring them on camera right now. Sister Polk, I'm just going to bring you on first, and then you can bring on your friend. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, Darren, and thank you so much for having us. It's indeed a pleasure to be with you and all the Zion viewers from the East Coast, the West Coast, the North, and the South.
That's right.
As you said, yeah, about that, everyone. As you said, Black History Month is coming to a close. And the guest this evening is Miss Tami Tyree, who for decades has been telling the African American story in her own unique way. Tami is an historian, preservationist, educator, singer, playwright, actor, the list is long. But most importantly, Tami is a woman of God. She grew up in the St. Paul AME Zion Church in Great Neck, New York. In fact, I think we may have a picture of St. Paul, the church that is. And she credits most of what she does to her roots in Zion. Now, I've just given you a snapshot of what she does. I'm going to let Tami give you the full picture. Welcome, Tami.
Welcome, Tami. I'm going to head off too. Tami, y'all take it away.
Good evening. I'm so happy to be here. It's such an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much, Zion, for honoring me with this precious time to speak about what I've been doing and what I hope to continue doing. Thank you, Deborah, for having me. Thank you, Mr. Kent. I want to give all kinds of thanks to the AME Zion Church and my church of my birth, my church heritage, St. Paul AME Zion Church in Great Neck, New York, where I was born and raised and lived until I became an adult. So I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Now, I know you are a graduate from Howard U, and I'm sure we've got a lot of Howard U University alumni and students tuning in, as well as other HBU students. So if you are tuning in, HBU students and alumni, give us a shout out and a wave. But Tami, tell us about your background and your experience at Howard University.
Okay, well, I am a graduate of Howard University's theater department, but actually I had a double major. I was theater and communications, and the roads that led me to Howard University was that I was a thespian in junior high and high school, meaning that I was in all the plays and I always sang. My singing kind of was cultivated at St. Paul AME Zion Church, where I started out in the Buds of Promise, went all the way through all the choirs. We had 5 choirs, and we were a small church, like 200 members, but we had great choirs, and we were known all over New York City. And I'm dating myself, but in the 70s,
okay,
in the 70s, we were known by the great choirs of the day, the institutional radio choir and some of the other great choirs of the day. They used to come out to us, and we've traveled all over. And so I really did a lot of singing as a lead singer. And when I got to Howard, I was a theater major, but most of my life was heavy singing. So I was in a professional ensemble at Howard and continued to travel.
Well, that's great. Tell us about, I know that you're the creator and founder of Echoes of Our Ancestors. It's as you termed it, it's a performance-driven African-American history story in song.
Yes.
Inspiration.
Okay. Well, Echoes of Our Ancestors is something that I started kind of late in life. It is basically a multidisciplinary, out of the classroom learning experience for Black history. The purpose of it was actually to teach my own sons. And then I realized that they were not going to learn Black history in school. And I pulled out my toolkit, which is music and communication and the arts. And I came up with the idea that the entire African-American story can be told through music. And I still firmly believe that. So Echoes of Our Ancestors is ancestral. There's no blueprint for what I do. I hear about something or I'm inspired by something and I take on a topic and I figure out how can I best tell the story in a creative way using my own skills. So it'll be something, it might be a concert, it might be literature, it might be some sort of field trip somewhere. And recently it's been plays that I wrote and music that I wrote for a play. So it takes all different forms, and my subject matter is actually, I say my subject matter is God-given because
that's just great. And it's such a far-reaching program, and it's a delight to hear this. Now, I understand that you did Harlem Freedom Tours, church freedom tours, and that was an outgrowth of Echoes. What was that about? What did this encompass? How many churches? And incidentally, Diane Chappelle says, "Good evening, Tami Tyree." Good evening, Diane.
Good evening, Diane. So this is how I met Diane and really became a link to the Mother Church. So living here in Harlem, it disturbed me to see Eurocentric people giving tours of Harlem, because for more than 100 years, Harlem has been occupied and dominated, and its culture and activism, etc., has been commandeered by Black and Latin people. So I jumped out into the tour world for that reason. I wanted to tell the story. And the Harlem Freedom Tour actually tells the story of 4 churches. So the 4 churches are Mother AME Zion, St. Philip's Church, Abyssinian Baptist Church, and St. Mark the Evangelist Catholic Church. They're all within 1 street over or 2 blocks away from each other. And each of these churches have a long history, some of which date back to slavery or right after slavery. And so I tell the story in that perspective.
Now, you and I met when you brought the Frederick Douglass continuity to the Mother Zion Church, which you've already mentioned. These were wonderful and informative presentations. You told me the idea came to you in a dream.
Right. So Right now, most people in Harlem associate me with Frederick Douglass. How did I get there? It's how did I get connected with Frederick Douglass? Most of my programs have something to do with music because I'm still, for most people, if they had to give a one-word definition of me, most people are going to say singer. So I vowed that when I was doing African American history, that I would always try to bring the musical component into my story. But I had a dream about Frederick Douglass, and it was just as Barack Obama was leaving the White House, which said to me, in the dream, it said that he had been our first Black president. And I said, oh, wow. And I started to do a lot of research about Frederick Douglass, and I couldn't believe all the things I was reading. And I just got really involved in Frederick Douglass in a totally different way. And so I wanted to bring him back as more than just a name on a school or a statue or street, because, there are a lot of, basically the way to describe Frederick Douglass. But I felt that people really didn't know a lot about him and to keep him really relevant. So I started doing the Frederick Douglass Continuum, which takes place at Mother Zion, and where he was a member.
Yeah, he preached there as well. Yeah, he was.
Right. And so the people in Harlem now, after 4 or 5 years of this, and me writing about Frederick Douglass, talking about Frederick Douglass, and doing all these other things having to do with Frederick Douglass, now a lot of people associate me. You say Frederick Douglass, they say Tami Tyree.
Well, that's very true. And speaking of Frederick Douglass, again, you wrote the play, A Seat at the Table, A Dinner with Frederick Douglass. Now,
Yeah.
full disclosure, I saw the play. I'm a fan, thoroughly enjoyed it. But you also have done another play recently, Colored Silks, which was, where I understand, received rave reviews in North Carolina. Tell us about that. How did that happen?
So, all right. So once again, Echoes of Our Ancestors is a very, my subject matters are given to me. They come in a dream, or I wake up with something tips off some idea, and I don't really have to answer to anyone about what I want to do. So whenever I'm inspired, and I say that the ancestors speak to me, so someone may speak to me. So Elizabeth Keckley, the White House dressmaker for Mary Todd Lincoln, was someone that spoke to me. I can't even tell you exactly how I found out about this woman. I do a lot of research. My work is very research oriented. And something that I was researching brought her name up and brought her book in my face. And I read the book and I said, oh my goodness. And I was just so enthralled with the whole thing. And I ended up doing something for the Association for the Study of African American Life, ASALA. I did a 9-minute monologue, dramatic presentation. And I kept writing. So a year later, I realized I had a full play. And that's what people are seeing now, the full play.
That's great. Now, I also understand that you own some of Thomas Dorsey's music, the famous writer and composer of Precious Lord, Take My Hand. How did you come to acquire his music?
All right, that's one of my moments. So that was another thing that was I was called to do. What happened was, in the 90s, for whatever reason, I was totally immersed in Mahalia Jackson's music. Now, we've all heard Mahalia Jackson and so forth, but I grew up in the 70s, and a more modern type of gospel was going on. So I wasn't really listening to her like that. But for some reason in the 90s, I was listening to her every morning. She woke me up and I went to bed with Mahalia Jackson. But I'm a historian and I'm a researcher. So because I fell in love with her like that, I started doing research. And I found out that her music was written, most of her songs, and she was paired with a songwriter, Thomas A. Dorsey, who wrote Precious Lord, and she was the main interpreter of that song. As I dug even deeper, I found out that his catalog of music and everything, that he left it at Fisk University. So Tami Tyree, she went to Fisk. And I worked with one of the archivists there, and I acquired the music of Thomas Dorsey and brought back original copies of the music. And from about 2010 to 2014, I did concerts. I was showing my artifacts from the archives of Thomas Dorsey. When I was there, I also was invited to sit in at a rehearsal of the Fisk Jubilee Singers. I brought back some of their music, but that was not my main reason for being there. It was about Thomas Dorsey. And then when the Harlem Opera Theater in 2019 announced that they were going to be doing the music of Thomas A. Dorsey, of whom I own the rights to the music, I have the rights to the music, it behooved them to invite me to be the lecturer on those concerts. And so I was, as late as 2019, I was still talking about Thomas A. Dorsey, and I did a show called Ma Mahalia and the Man. Thomas A. Dorsey also wrote music for Ma Rainey, which a lot of people don't know. That was his first job, writing dirty blues songs. So that's a big thing for me. That's I'm still very much involved with that music, protective of that music, and that's a very important. I consider that whole period, the Thomas Dorsey, Mahalia Jackson period, a highlight of my echoes of our ancestors.
Well, that's just fascinating, Tami. And speaking of more music and more trips, I know in 2018 you took a 21-day trip to Nigeria. I know that must have been super, super exciting. Now we have a clip of the documentary, We Are the Endless Roar. We're going to take a look at it, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. The clip.
We need to start telling our own stories instead of allowing other people to tell stories that does nothing but denigrate us.
The project we have is a project of a better tomorrow.
Because Black people have always been portrayed as poor, dangerous human beings.
Don't let me fail on this journey. Whether you practice the tradition or not, Oshun is everybody's mother. Everybody acknowledge that.
The trip is already totally worthwhile. We are the soil. We are the people, the first people, and we're going to be here.
Africa is rising. We are the endless roar. Tyree.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored to be in your presence. And I'm not going to speak because my esteemed colleague has said everything that I feel. I would like to offer a song for you that was created by two of the greatest African-American musicians, Duke Ellington, who I'm sure you've heard of, and the late, great Mahalia Jackson. together, they sang this wonderful song. The song is called Come Sunday.
Lord, dear Lord of love, God Almighty, God above, please look down and see my people through. Lord, dear Lord of love, God Almighty, God above, please look down and see my people through. I believe the sun and moon will shine up in the sky when the day is cloudy. It's just rain clouds passing by. Lilies of the valley neither toil nor spin, and flowers bloom, and springtime birdies sing. Often we get weary, but He knows our every care. Just go to Him in secret. He will ease your every prayer. Come Sunday, oh,
That was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. In fact, we have a couple of compliments in the chat room. If Veronica Cook, who I'm sure you know from Other Design, she says you are a wonderful storyteller and historian. Let me ask you something. What do you think is the greatest challenge today as to the African American diaspora?
I think that I was thinking about that, and I think one of the things that, well, there's two things. First of all, there needs to be a meeting of the minds between the children of the once enslaved and those who can speak directly of a homeland, whether it be a Caribbean or African homeland. So we are all from descendants of the same seeds, and I think that much could be accomplished if we saw ourselves as brothers and sisters, which I don't think that we do. The other thing another reason why echoes of our ancestors still exists. I've been at this thing for about 15 years now by myself. This is not an organization. This is one person making a bunch of noise. The other thing is that we, the descendants of the once enslaved here in America, there needs to be a reckoning. We need to come to terms with our past. We need to clarify and understand ourselves and what happened, eradicate falsehoods, but come to terms with the fact that yes, we had a very stony and unjust way of being here, but we've been here and we've accomplished a lot. And I like to, when I take on a person or a movement in our history, it's not to complain or create a pity party. I want people to feel we should feel empowered for so much that we accomplished and so much that we did, and continue to do. And the struggle continues, and it will always continue. But you're never going to feel good about yourself until you reckon with the past and work to change things as things go along. And I think you do that first by dealing with the truth, right? The truth shall set you free. We shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And it's up to us. It's our responsibility to tell our own stories and to clarify.
Because when you were in Nigeria, what was your overall, I mean, how did you feel? What was the experience like? You know, what did you?
Let me explain that trip. That was a spiritual pilgrimage. My dear friend, the woman that you heard speaking, she created that documentary, Joyce Adewumi. She is a Nigerian of the Yoruba tribe. But she's been in America since she was 4 years old. Her family has royal lineage in Nigeria. And I went with her on what was actually a royal trip. The clip that you heard me singing Come Sunday was the Emir of Argungu in his palace. We stayed with 3 different kings in 3 different parts of Nigeria. They were not necessarily of the same tribe. They had their own languages. I laughed because I said, okay, now everybody's got to speak English. And she is welcomed by royalty in all parts of Nigeria because of her family. And so we went there because of the Oshun festival. So everyone at birth or as close to birth as possible has a divination ceremony, and her Orisha is Oshun, who covers waters. So we we went in August for the Oshun Festival. People come from all over the world, and we visited various bodies of water. I drank from some very sacred water. I met the three kings. I stayed in these kings' residences. We traveled all across the country, even flew from one part to the other. It was not a trip of entertainment, dining and dancing and so forth. And I found out who my Orisha is, and that's Sango. And boy, does that suit me. Sango is a king, and within moments after I stepped down on the plane, I was in a divination ceremony with people who had never seen me, priests who had never seen me. They didn't have the inside track, and it was many hours and just some information that I gave them about my mother and so forth. And they said that my Orisha is Sango. So I learned a lot of things about myself. And it was amazing how they could come up with this. It was things that Joyce never even knew about me either. She didn't know all these things. It was just amazing to get that kind of understanding and to visit all of these sacred waters and ceremonies. That's
now, this is really fascinating. I think you mentioned before that they told you, and your aura was that of a fashionista.
Yes,
a
well,
fashion queen.
Anybody who knows Tami Tyree knows that she's a very fancy gal, and that Tami Tyree worked on Fifth Avenue in fashion. That was my day job for 30 years, and I was a fit model in the 80s. So Tami is a very glamorous girl. She likes fine jewels and fine clothes, and she was around all those things. I worked in those things. That's why I went to work in those things. But my friend didn't even know that. She knows me as an artist. And I am the daughter of a king, and jewels and everything. And they told me that my color was red, although we were to wear white and everything. And Joyce had never been to my house either. And my house has two gold sofas, and I'm sitting in a gold and red chair. And I have chairs in my house that are gold, actually plated with 14 karat gold. I shouldn't tell anybody that, but and it stands to reason. Now I know why I'm like this. I'm a daughter of a king, and and his wife Aura, she wields a sword, and he breathes fire. So it just it's just amazing how on track. And I had them over my house after we came back for a dinner, and that was the first time. I've known Joyce for over 10 years. She's been to my house, and they walked in, and my whole house is red and gold. That's the color of Sango, you know. So it really the things they told me about myself and what I was supposed to be or not be, and it was a whole panel of priests, none of whom spoke English, that were presiding over this. And the other traveler that Malika Harris, it was only two of us African Americans that went. She had a divination ceremony, and she was told things as well. But I asked that they not put my divination in the documentary, so because that's personal information. But it was very profound, and I felt very grounded. I also did a lot of crying over there, which is in the film, actually. I cried a lot, and I was crying because I felt we so much was taken from us. And that's what when I was crying, I wasn't crying tears of joy. I was crying tears of pain, because when I was there, I realized that there was so much that was taken from us, and my feeling was I could never get this back. And so that was the trauma that I felt. For me, it was also very traumatic. Yeah.
you seem to have gotten so much from your trip, and I'm sure you did. I mean, it was just amazing what you went through and the things that you learned. And speaking of, learning and imparting wisdom, what would you tell our youth today about the African American history? How would you approach them? What would the message be?
Well, I think that we have to work this out for ourselves. I think it's very traumatic that, there's a movement now to erase whatever little African American history was being told in the first place. But this is something that we have to take into our own hands. And people need to learn in whatever way that they can. For me, my learning program is, has a strong leaning with music and arts and culture. But however you need to do it, and so if it's a movie, if it's literature, a play, even if it's something that is not 100% true, maybe like historical fiction, there's always a large component of truth. But when I do something, I like to get people talking about things that they wouldn't think about ordinarily in their ordinary day. I'm a grassroots historian. I'm speaking to the general public, and I'm speaking to different age groups. Depending on who it is, I customize my teaching that way. Like I've taught spirituals to kids at St. Mark the Evangelist on 135th between 5th and Lenox, 138th. I taught them the spirituals and the stories behind those songs. So it depends on who you're with. But there's millions of different ways to get knowledge that goes above and beyond a basic textbooks. The textbooks don't do us justice. We're a sidebar. They may say a little bit, but they don't do us justice. You're not going to get it that way. So seek other ways to learn things. But you must learn. You must learn, and we must take it upon ourselves. The Schomburg, that was Afro-Latin who started to collect material culture, mostly literature. Okay. The big library in Washington, D.C., that's material culture. But all of that has a story. And so we have to do this ourselves.
Before we close out, and we still have we have a lot of time actually, and I was wondering, what emphasis would you put on African American History Month, particularly as it relates to Zion churches? Is there anything we should be doing, anything we should not be doing?
Well, we have the AME Zion Church was so actively involved in the abolition and immediate post-slavery movement. So this is I think that information must never be tampered down, no matter how many times people want to talk about, say, oh, we need to move on or whatever. No, that is a big part of our story. That is what and the average person walking around doesn't know that. So that is something that we need to do to explain the Black church. What is the Black church? A lot of people think it's just a bunch of Black people sitting in a church. No, it is not. There are lots of Black people going to churches that are not necessarily churches that were incorporated or founded by Black people. And so the AME Zion Church is a denomination that was founded by and for Black people. And so there are two very important institutions for the once enslaved African in America: our churches and our colleges. And these two institutions need to be venerated. They need to be explained to our children what they are, how important they are. You don't have to go. You're right. You should be able to go anywhere you want and worship anywhere you want. But these are part of our story, and they are our history and our legacy. They need to be explained and preserved and honored for getting us to the point that we are at today.
That's wonderful, and you're absolutely correct. And when you are writing in different plays and presenting different projects, what's the inspiration? What motivates you to do these?
Some question in my own mind, or some fallacy that I want to eradicate, or just like you said, like I said about Frederick Douglass, a command. I'm on a mission about something. And so then I sit there and I figure out, well, how do I want to present this information at this point? And so, sometimes, like I said, it's a play or something. With Frederick Douglass, I'm telling every side of Frederick Douglass. So even sides that may not be so great. And so, taking on Anna and taking the position of Anna and what she had to deal with in being Mrs. Frederick Douglass. That's kind of like what the story is with my musical. I love Frederick Douglass, but I'm a historian. I'm going to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's what that story is about. And Elizabeth Keckley, there were things in her story that the editors were not interested in. And I wanted to know more about her son that got killed fighting in the Civil War. I wanted to know more about the marriage that she had. I wanted to know how she raised $1,200 to buy her freedom. $1,200 in the 1800s is the equivalent of many millions today. How did she do that? And so those are the gaping holes that I built my story on, because there wasn't information about that. And so that's where the fiction part of my story about her comes in. What I imagined based on based on history and some other things around it. And I enlarged her story and made her into a person that is about more than just her fashion roots. She's about some other things. She's a mother, and she's and the problems that she had in the middle of the Civil War. So
let me ask you, with Colored Silks, is it being performed again in the New York area, or where is it going to be performed next?
So Colored Silk, my one woman play, which I am invariably playing the role. Colored Silk will be back in New York for an extended run, I am pleased to say, in November of 2023. That's all I'm going to say for now, but it's going to be off Broadway, so that it'll be here in New York, and it will be here in the month of November 2023.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're going to make sure we keep track of that. And,
yes.
Tami, this has been so interesting. The chats have been so complimentary. The people are just loving your stories, and this is history, and we need to hear more of this. Now, before we sign off, do you have any final thoughts for our audience?
Yes. I want to tell you of something else that I'm doing. I'm going to be doing a gospel music workshop. This is for people who are in New York, and it is for seniors because it is happening during the day. We're going to be tracing the evolution of gospel music from its spiritual roots all the way up, how it has influenced other genres, pop, R&B, even theater. And we will also be singing some inspirational songs, some secular songs as well. But the main focus of the workshop will be gospel music. And during Black Music Month, which is June, we'll be having a concert June 30th. If you go to my website, which we'll be putting up. If you are interested in knowing more about this and you are in the New York City area, in particular in Manhattan, of course it's free and everything. This is not anything. You can join this program. It'll be running starting in about 2 weeks in March, every week for an hour, sometimes 2, because I'm going to show films and so forth. And it'll run all the way through June. So it's called The Power of Inspirational Music. I'm very excited about doing this. I've done this for different groups of people, at different times. And it is history and singing. And you don't have to be a singer. You just have to be interested in getting together and singing for relaxation and learning.
I may just take you up on that, Tami. I'm not a singer, but I would love to be in the workshop.
I want you to come.
I will be there.
Absolutely.
This has been so fascinating. And I'm telling you, the chats are just wonderful. One lady is saying here she would love to see it in November, the colored silks. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on. And you have been such an inspirational and informational guest. And this has just been great. I really have enjoyed this. So
I love what I do. I love what I do.
And it definitely shows. And we are so proud of you. And we need more people like you. Our stories need to be told. And you have a wealth of information. You have a dynamic personality. You get it out there. You know how to sell your story, tell your story. This is just great, Tami. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in tonight. This is Tami Tyree. And we're going to throw it back to Darren, our managing editor. So Darren, back to you.
Thank you very much. Now, listen, I'm gonna break protocol right here and bring Sister Tyree back on for a hot second. You were amazing, and I just want to say that publicly so everybody can hear us. And thank you for your time and for your efforts as far as sharing our story. You spoke about.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And my life in St. Paul AME Zion Church was such a joy, and my mother and everyone. We love it.
And we hear you when you say we need to tell our own story. That's exactly what the Freedom Church is here to do. That's what the Star of Zion is here to do. That's why we are appreciative of you coming on and sharing your perspective of your story and your stories, which tie into everything that we want to do from an African American perspective. Listen, I wanted one specific question. All right, what moment was it like that really turn the light on for you to say, I have to do this work?
Oh yes, because I was working in the fashion industry on Fifth Avenue.
Right.
So when my kids one day it was a Martin Luther King Sunday, and I think I don't know, somebody was 8 and maybe 5. I have two boys, and I started telling them about Martin Luther King. But in order to tell about Martin Luther King, I had to go back and explain and back and explain it. And I said, nope, how many people are going to do this? And that was the moment that I realized that I was going to start a program to teach. That was the turning point.
That was the turning
point.
That day.
In my kitchen. In my kitchen. I was in my kitchen.
Wow. Listen, and look how many people you've impacted. We can tell by the chat that you have, definitely set a trend, and it's not something that is going to evaporate or go away after time. This is something that's here to stay, and we need more voices like you to fight this good work. So I hope everybody that's watching on tonight has heard this story. We even have a comment from Miss Mary Milner, who says this is very interesting and informative, and thanks for sharing. I mean, this has been the breadth of the comments that have been coming in on tonight. So this is what the Star of Zion is here to do: expose people to little known facts and Star of Zion jewels and gems that have been working behind the scenes and doing amazing work across our denomination. And you definitely celebrate and are a part of that world. So we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
On tonight, and thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Sister Pope, for introducing us to Sister Tyree. We appreciate you as well. You're doing an amazing job of being the category editor for the Zion Spotlight category of the Star of Zion. We appreciate you and for bringing this to our attention because this was informative and necessary and perfectly recaps and summarizes everything that we were doing for the month of Black History, February. Okay, we need a longer month too. We definitely need that.
Well, I just want to let people I want to remind people that it was set in February because of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, both of their birthdays, February 12th and February 14th. And that is the reason.
That's
not because it's the shortest month.
That's the reason. Listen, you bring us. That's it. That's good information right there.
Yeah,
we always joke about it on social media, but I don't think I've ever heard that reason before. Thank you for sharing that.
That is the reason.
Yeah,
Carter G. Woodson started Black History Month.
Amen.
And that was the reason for those two individuals.
I gotta link you with my mama. You and her would vibe on another level. So I gotta do that offline. But anyway, thank you again for all that you've done on tonight.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. And please pray for me and my endeavors.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
We will. We got the website up there, so we'll definitely be connecting and being able to definitely support your ministry, because that's what this is, an absolute ministry thus far. Thank you for everybody who has joined us on tonight. I'm going to put the ticker up in order for us to be able to subscribe to the Star of Zion, to visit the starofzion.org. Let me tell you, we got some amazing things on the horizon for the Star of Zion. We got a new website, a new digital platform, new ways to subscribe. And that is how you'll be able to get connected to more content just like this. All right. So if you felt like this was amazing on tonight, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. It's coming more. We might even bring Sister Tyree back on for a part 2, because I know she has much more to talk about than we could fit into this hour just now. But listen, take the time to really go to our link and be able to subscribe right now to the Star of Zion and be able to connect with us. We want to be able to provide you good, relevant content for the Star, and to be able to do this on a consistent basis, on a monthly basis right now. But the more digital that we get, we're going to be able to bring this content to you at a more frequent level, and how we consume our media on today, right? So thank you again on tonight. This has been a recap kind of our entire Black History Month. We love the fact that we brought it all together with Sister Tyree and in our Zion Spotlight area, and the fact that she was and still is in some respects a Zionite that celebrates everything that we're doing from the African American heritage and diaspora thus far. Thank you so much for joining us. I again am Darren Kent. I am the editor-in-chief of the Star of Zion, also the chief communications officer of the AME Zion Church. Feel free to again subscribe to the Star of Zion. That subscription will work toward more programming just like this. And I know you want to see more programming just like this in the future. Thanks again, and have a great, amazing night on behalf of the Star of Zion. God bless you all.